Welcome back to part two of the podcast, the Champions Blueprint podcast, where we continue our conversation with Brian Kozak. Last week, we discussed how Brian uses his training sessions to engage youth athletes with attention and focus, and how he uses those lessons to enhance their behavior and performance in other areas of their life as well. This week, we're going to discuss further about how he works with long-term athletic development as well as respiration training, and I think you will really enjoy how he's working with energetic systems of his athletes. So let's jump straight back in. We have this ongoing discussion down here about year-round hockey practice, competitive hockey, and training. What you've spent pretty substantial portion of your time describing right now is non-sport specific stuff, and actually it speaks quite well to a lot of the other long-term athletic development, even actually LTAD theory, where there's certain characteristics that somebody who is athletic needs to have, certain foundational skills, and it seems like those things are just getting bypassed in favor of sports specificity, which is a bit of a buzz at the moment. But is your attitude or opinion that, you know, if the kid loves it, let them do it to their heart's content, or do you think there's a certain point where we need to say, you know what, it might be time to explore other movements, other sports, other hobbies, because this is getting to a point where I think it's too much?
Okay. So I told you I live in Canada. You can't tell by the accent. So the parents, you know what I mean, like anything, right? I remember, I'll tell you a quick story. Two players I trained when I was younger back in my hometown. One guy ended up being captain of Ottawa, and the other guy, he played, I can't remember, Eau Claire down in the States. He ended up being an assistant captain. Really good people, really good players. They come back, finish their career, and they're setting up they both set up business in my hometown. And I said, hey, we played Thursday night hockey together, and said, hey, it's time to give back to the kids. And they're like, well, you know, we're busy stars. I said, yeah, so was I. But I trained you guys, right? And you still owe me money. So they end up coaching. They took a team, a bantam rep team. And in Canada, the parents can go a little wide, right? They think their kid, you know, we've got to do a better job educating people, right? It doesn't happen in volleyball or like in Canada in basketball at the high school level. It doesn't happen. But in hockey, every kid's going to make it, right? So they get a bantam team that's really a lot of kids that had other ideas in sports, a lot of skateboarders and stuff, some really interesting kids, but hockey wasn't their passion. So it was a difficult year. It was a great learning year for them, right? They would come back every Thursday, what would you do in this situation, Cozy? I'm like, hey, this is what I do. It's about fun. You got to make it fun, da-da-da-da. But anyways, they're having trouble with one young man. And so that's age 13 and 14. And he just keeps taking penalties and he doesn't care. Right. And not a good penalty, you know, like nothing that in our zone, stopping a goal, right. Open net goal. He's on his own page. So they sit him for a shift and they go, okay, you can go back up now. It wasn't a punishment. So you can think, see what the other guys, be a good teammate. They know the words to say, the phrases. And the kid goes, nah, I'm not going to go back on. And they're like, what? Like, then why are you here? I don't know. You know what I mean? I want to be with my buddies, right? He said, okay, sit another shift. So they sit him another shift. Then they go, you want to go back on? He goes, no. He says, I hate you almost as much as my dad does. So like, this poor kid's getting in the car every day with his, you know, after practice or a game, and the dad's on him like how bad these coaches are, right? That's our job as coaches. We got to do a better job of that, right? When I coached, I always brought all the parents in. We had a bunch of different meetings, and I said, look, you're my lawyer. You're my accountant in the small town, right? You do this, you do that. You're the Zamboni guy. We all have our jobs. I never come and tell you how to do your job. And I know all you guys. There's no way you can play hockey with me. And there's no way you can coach like me. So let me do my job, right? I'm the best guy to do this job with your kids, right? And I'm not, the hockey's second to me. They're going to be people that figure it out. Their attention level is going to be sharp. They're going to have way better school marks because they're going to do it. I'm going to teach them life skills. The hockey's second. But when you put the horse in front of the cart, they're way better. It works way better, right? The only way it works the other way is a couple kids that are super skilled anyways, right? They're going to be good no matter what. So when we think of, you get a kid that loves it. I had a guy, a great guy from my hometown. He wanted to bring his grandson to me at age 4. And I'm like, you know what? I said, bring him out. I have the midget AAA program team coming. So there's 22 guys. Bring him out. I want to see how he is with the old kids. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, just bring him out. So he comes and he's super shy. So I said, you want to help Cozy out? He's like, I said, as soon as these guys stop, we're going to set up for the next drill. So I'll tell you, I'll draw it on the board where you put the cones. Can you do that? And he's like, yeah, right. So that's all we did. Then when the kids left, I put tennis balls on top of these cones, 3 cones, and I shot the tennis balls off the cones. Then I put the tennis balls on the cones and I went down and talked to the grandpa. That kid went down there. I'm almost going to get all fired up about this. The kid hits the balls off. He picks it up for the next half an hour, just doing that. And I said, that's different. I said, how is he? He goes, he sleeps with his helmet on. We have to take it off. Like the kid loves hockey, right? Those are rare. Those ones, like that kid trained with me after that. Like he just come and helped me out. It wasn't training, it was playing. You know what I mean? But now he's just dominant. You know, he's just a dominant player and he passes. He's not like a guy that he scores 10 goals a game, but he's also setting up everyone because he doesn't want to score 10 goals a game. Those are rare. Those ones, all in. Get them around it, let them play. That something's going to happen. It's amazing. Also, get them into everything else. Karate, especially soccer. You know, for me, I remember when I first, as a 16-year-old, went away for junior, the pass hit my skates, and I looked down to find the puck. That's it. My head was in you know where, right? Bang, guy hits me. So that won't happen again. I went back, I started soccer. I was horrible at soccer, but I could run. The beautiful thing about soccer now, I could use my feet to pick up the puck. The beautiful thing about soccer is in getting more into the technical, the physical side, you need a base, right? The old anaerobic aerobic model, it's out the door, right? I'm not cutting it down. It just doesn't exist. The technology shows us it's proven. It just takes time, right? When new technology comes out, people play with it and they figure things out. That's what we did with the NEARS, the Portamon, then the Moxie, right? So you figure that out. It's like the breathing. Once we figure that out, along comes a smart young man or woman, and they go, hey, I'd like to do my PhD on this. So they do that, then it gets peer reviewed, then it finally gets into the school system and it gets taught, right? That's 15 to 25 years. So what we're doing now is you're not going to see for a long time yet, right? So it's really important to understand that and how we can get these kids to amazing places. Now, they have to play other sports because all these other skills, all these other kids they're going to meet, all these things, life skills they're going to get, that's the bonus. That's it. The bonus is those skills transfer to their sport. Okay? Eye-hand coordination, ping pong, badminton, all these different games they can play, right? Handball, whatever they can play. Lacrosse is super good, right? All those things are going to help. Now, the base of it is, back to the anaerobic aerobic model, all it is basically is everything you do with oxygen. If you don't believe me, just do some squats and hold your breath. Actually blow all your air out and do squats. See how many you can do. You got to breathe, right? So you need oxygen. To make it super simple, if I need oxygen, why wouldn't I train it? I asked trainers, do you train all the muscles? They're like, yep. I said, okay, perfect. So you train the legs, lower body, yep. Arms, upper body, chest, yep. What about the respiratory muscles? Because the lungs don't breathe by themselves. There's about 10 pounds of muscles, respiratory muscles. And how do you train those? Not by sit-ups. You have to train them specifically with the machine, right? Here's our plug, our in-X breathing, right? So there's a couple devices out there that you can breathe that it comes from the inside out. So a sport like soccer, what happened for me, and it happened because I was horrible when I started playing at 16, but I could run. And I would just run and bug everyone on the field, the other team, obviously, and sometimes my own guys, because I'd run into them. But I would just run for the full 60 minutes, right? I would just run, 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 run. And I got better because I've had my attention on it, sharpened it. So the skills started coming. I carried a football, a soccer ball in my foot all the time. For you, it's football, right? The proper term, right? So I got good at it. But what I noticed was I could last longer and do more shifts in the game. Where'd that come from? That long, consistent training, right? Not to get deep into it, you need that. That allows you to recover quicker. That gives you better health. That does so many more things. So you need that. Yes, we can do some neat things with short sprints, but you need that base. So yes, they should play a bunch of sports. And high school, man, you can play so many things, especially down here.
Especially down here. You get poached almost if you're good at, if somebody hears you're good at another sport, like, you should really try football. Here's football. Oh, yeah. Probably not. I should say that down here. I get all sorts of trouble. I've just alienated like 70% of kids in a sweeping statement. They'll just go, these Scots guys, they don't know what they're missing out on. So I think that's interesting, and it's in line with what is great is when practical experience actually meets the theory. Doesn't happen that often, or at least the theory just started to evolve. There's a few interesting position statements on LTAD. I think the way that you've described it there is a lot more organic than prescribing, because I think the concern is that you have this pie chart basically of stuff that people should be able to do, and the problem is that people then want to formulaically go through that and say, okay, now we have to do 1/8 of the year doing throwing sports, then we have to do 1/8 of the year doing track, and then we have to do 1/8 of the year doing this, and it's just that's not a realistic skill acquisition model. But it's great to hear that the theory is sound, but it's the art of the application, and then the personality of the kid that you're also working with. And then we can start to talk about, right, what should you be spending your year doing, or the next 3 years doing from a physical development standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it perfectly, and very succinct, very clear. It's being a teacher. If you're teaching, once you're a teacher, you can see it, even as a coach. But a coach it's so much easier because you usually have a bunch of kids that want to be there. But when you're in school and you're teaching like history or some course that a lot of the kids, especially in teenage years, they're like, wow, why are we taking this, right? To get their attention is the most important thing, right? Now, how do you do that is you have to use so many different ways as a teacher if you're teaching a course like that. But what we have as parents, and even like I went back and I offered my services to we call it to Hockey Canada, and then we have from Hockey Canada, they're the governing body over each minor hockey system. I'm not sure if it's the same here. So we have a minor hockey system that's a bunch of volunteers, right? So I went in and I said, look, this is how I see it, right? We've got to make this fun. It has to be games, right? And even our whole city, so many kids used to play hockey, but now there's other options: soccer, basketball, volleyball, and all these different things, right? We should be sharing these kids, and I showed them the underlying theory. And here's the thing: I said, in school, if I force someone to do something, you got to study this. Good luck, right? The ones that see the bigger picture down the road in education, they'll do the work. Begrudgingly, they'll do the work. But I'm going to lose a bunch. And school's about just getting it. The school's set up for a certain low percentage of people, right? You know what I mean? It's not, everyone's school's not set up. Who's going to be a lawyer, a doctor? It's just not set up that way. So what we want to do in school, what I wanted to do was, what do you like? Tell me, show me. How can we tie this in that could possibly help you down the road? We got to do this. But let's do it not just from this book. How's history going to help you in sports? How's this going to help you, right? Well, in hockey, I want to know every guy before I jump on the ice, right? I want to know everything about that team, especially if I'm the general manager and the coach and a player. Is that defenseman left-hand playing on the right side? Whoa, I'm going down that side unless he's the best player, right? There's all these little things I can see. But school education, the main thing in education, it teaches us to do something that we don't want to do, right? It teaches us discipline, right? Well, how about if they could see the picture why they do that? That this can help me in another sport, or this can help me in this, and this can help me in that. In sports, it's even easier because what do you like? Like, so in our gym, you want to play soccer today? Do you want to play handball? Do you want to play ping pong? We all have these different games we expose them to, right? And then you see some kid that just loves ping pong. Well, that's what he's going to play. Yes, we got to do this stuff too. We got to lift some weights. We got to do this, right? We're on the impulse machine. We're doing a bunch of stuff. That just ties in to make you a harder serve or more spin on the ball. That's how we try and tie all those different things in.
Is the lack of ice time detrimental to the development? As in, are they handicapped compared to individuals in Canada or Minnesota for that one factor? Or is that something that can be potentially overcome with a more rounded developmental strategy over a period?
Well, let's start from the end backwards. They got to get off the skates, right? That's the thing. There's the opposite in Canada, right? It's just they're on the ice too much, and they have to get off the skates and at least a couple months stay off them, right? You talk to our guys Aaron and Patrick, like the skating, the things it does to the hips, right? And the goaltender, my goodness, right? The butterfly on their knees and everything. So we've got to get them off the skates. That's for sure. Playing some different sports. Now the other end on the end down here is get them on the ice as much as possible. Like if you can get it on 2-3 times a week is great. And as you get older, obviously more. But in Canada, in our small town, the ice, we only have 2 rinks. We should have 4, right? So until it freezes enough that we get on outdoor rinks, we're limited ice time because there's just not enough rinks for the amount of hockey players. So what we do is we do stuff in gyms. We play floor hockey. We play all different types of games, right? And you still work on skills. There's some really, like in my gym, I have a shooting area, right? I have slide boards. It's a V skating machine, right? We have some different things. In the gym I had out in BC, we had a skate mount. So put your skates on, your harness in. We played, right? And kids can work on skills and have lots of fun on those things. So, and then what we did in Quesnel, they were way ahead. This town I was in, they realized we don't need the full ice surface for little kids. Like, let's make 3 or 4. Like, let's split to 3 zones, and we can have 3 teams on the ice, right? So now we've doubled or tripled their ice time. So things like that. You want to get on the ice the more, and as you get older, obviously you want them on the ice, 3-4 times a week, right? College level, it's ideal. You practice during the week. You have a day off or 2 maybe, and you play on the weekends. That's the ideal way. Junior hockey's gone that way too, as much as possible. They still have mid games. But yeah, if you get them on the ice 2-3 times, or you get them on the ice 2 times a week and get them in the gym playing floor hockey and do some skill work stuff. Yeah. Like when we do our training, even with the midget players, we'll do a circuit, whatever we're doing. And in that circuit, it has skill work. So they're juggling a tennis ball on their hockey stick or a puck, right? Or we have this guy up in Dauphin, Manitoba, made this skating shooting machine. It's skill tech. It's a puck. It's like a bolt, to make it simple. There's the puck's on a bolt and it's on a track system, and you just fire the puck and it hits the spring and comes back. So your eye-hand coordination and how quick you can release that puck, all these different skills. For face-offs, you can do a bunch of different games on it. So we have those things. So that's in our circuits. We're doing skill stuff, especially with the kids, the young kids. It's mostly skills with some balancing and some push-ups and squats and lunges, some fun stuff, right? While you're passing a ball or something. So we tie all that in. Even if the pros were doing skills, it's just when they do skills, it's skills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a bunch of other stuff. But the young kids, we tie it all in.
That answers that really well. I think that's, and I think that should feel reassuring for people here because we're certainly getting. I mean, yeah, we have to fight sometimes to get the kiddos on the ice, but it certainly is availability. There's also plenty of open skate where they can just go out and get the skates on and go around. Uh, my opinion is that they get enough. And it's interesting you brought up this hip thing, particularly somebody that has CAM and has FAI. That does concern me as well as they go through the teenage years, the sort of morphology of the bones and the shape of the acetabulum and the potential for issues down the line. We want to avoid as much as possible, and I think that, if nothing else, at least as a medical practitioner, that's something I think about, and I can completely relate to what Aaron and Pat are thinking there. It's like, wow, let's maybe try a slightly different plane of motion here for a little while.
Yes.
Get into CrossFit, that's all sagittal instead of this sort of frontal plane stuff. But so last little bit, maybe this is taking it to a slightly different place, is we've talked about some technologies that in X, so we were talking about respiratory training. Now, obviously, the next question is going to be, well, hang on a minute, Cozy's just been talking about training the respiratory muscles and the respiratory system, but not sit-ups. I have a Spiro Tiger, and I've learned indirectly from you. I've learned some stuff from you, but I've learned from Dr. Nick Studholme, and learned bits and pieces just from looking at what Pat and Aaron have been doing. Any hints, tips, techniques, or thoughts, or even resources around when you'd want to start working on that with resistance with a tool when it needs to be with a device? How do you monitor it, and where are the best places to find out about that sort of thing, because it's not commonly done.
Mm-hmm. It's so how I start that off is just let all your air out and don't breathe. And that's it. I don't say nothing. So people let all their air out, right? And then you'll see them go like that. I say, okay, so breathing's the most important thing in your life, because if you don't breathe, you're dead. It's real simple, right? And how you breathe affects everything about you. And again, don't believe me. Do it. Play. Figure it out yourself. So the next time you're driving and someone cuts you off, or you're late for work or whatever it is, late to get your kids to practice, watch what happens to your breathing when you get frustrated or angry. You hold your breath. Or if you breathe fast like that, you're probably psycho, right? You're probably great for hockey. Put the helmet on you and let you go. Right? So once you hold your breath, you're creating all this tension. So now they understand, okay, breathing is important, right? How I think is how I breathe, right? My wife, we taught with kids when she was teaching, grade 3, grade 4 kids, when they get in a little argument over a toy in the schoolyard, she'd go, hey, one EA would grab the one child and the other one would go to the other one and say, hey, smell my soup. What kind of soup is it? Can you smell a chicken noodle? And they go, yeah. Well, it's hot. I can't drink it. Blow it, cool it down. They're teaching them to breathe. And as soon as they change their breathing, they can't remember what they're at. They're mad at again. As soon as you change your breathing, you can't be angry. But don't breathe. Don't believe me. You got to practice this. And when you get angry, depending on how angry you get, you might need to practice that skill for a few months. But you can beat it. You can get rid of that, right? Using your breath. Those are basic skills, right? How do people breathe? Just watch how they breathe. Especially if you do a few squats, they'll breathe like, most people breathe like this. Up the chimney, right? Frontal. So we've got everyone, as long as there was no problems at birth, every kid breathes properly. Just watch them. It looks like their belly's coming out. It is, because the diaphragm, they're tiny. My daughter, she had a huge head when she was little. I was like, my God, I can't believe that body carries that head, right? It was just funny. But her body is so tiny that when the diaphragm goes down on the inhalation, it pushes the organs. That's why the belly comes out. As we get bigger, the belly shouldn't be coming way out. If it does, maybe you're a little shorter, right? It might come out a little bit, but it's learning how to breathe properly. And all you have to do is remember it. So we go back to the story with the kids in school, 50% less homework. So if you look at me, for example, here's my rib cage. Let all the air out. Now watch. My rib cage is moving 360 in every direction, like a can, right? It goes out in every direction. We just have to play with the kids just to show them, give them a reference, right? And they remember it. Once they remember, we just have to now make that hair thicker strand called rope, so that they forget that. And what happens when they get a little so-called stress? Remember, stress, that's a word someone invented. They're all words. But when you say stress to me, I'm like, oh, what's the challenge? Let's go. It doesn't shut me down. My breathing actually settles down. That's a taught skill. So once we teach them how to breathe properly, we start paying attention to their narrative, get them to play with their narrative. We change those words. Stress is an opportunity. There's no problems unless I make it a problem. There's only situations. Anxiety is me thinking about the future. Depression is me thinking about the past, right? What's the difference? I'm right here. I can start changing those words. Yes, those words are very real if you believe it, but we shouldn't be teaching kids those words. We should be teaching them how to breathe. So we work on breathing and tie into the mental. Then from there, it's just like doing push-ups and sit-ups. After a while, I want to lift some weights. Now, here's the thing. The trachea, so from your mouth, your larynx down to your lungs, right? The garden hose. When you're young, it can expand. We can train it to be bigger so you can move more air. I'll give you an example. Young player, I had him when he was 14. He was huge, like 6'2" or something. He ended up being 6'4", 240. Still playing. Played minor pro and plays over in Germany. At 14, he had a huge lung capacity, 5.2. In 3 years, we trained him we were using the Spiro Tiger at that time. Now we have the NX. We trained him he got an 8.1 liter lung capacity.
Wow, that's insane.
And the amount of air he can move. So, on the Moxie, we know that every player skating full out can last 17 seconds plus or minus 3. That's pros, everyone, right? There's the odd guy that's outside that. Now, your recovery is around, top guys can recover in 40 seconds all the way to 100 seconds, right? Give or take. The amount of air you move, so that when he was 14, he could move 150 liters, which was unreal. 150 liters, he would take 90 seconds to recover. 90 seconds. When he can move 300 liters of air, he could recover in 44 to 45 seconds. He was drafted in the 12th round to major junior. That means you don't make the team. He made the team. Then, within a year, he became the top 4. Then he became the top D because he could double shift. He could play 28 to 30 minutes a game because he could recover by blowing off the CO2 twice as fast. Not to talk about, we also put, I can't remember what it's called. It measures electrical activity on your muscles.
EMG?
If you do with the EMG, if you do a hanging leg raise, no swing, just lift your legs to your hands. You can do that 25 times. That's good, right? Now, measuring that electrical activity 3 to 4 times, breathing on the largest bag size, a 6-liter bag size, you can get 3 to 4 times more electrical activity on the respiratory muscles. Because core strength is from the inside out. Blow a balloon up and try and push your hands together. If it's right to the edge, no way. You can't push that balloon together. The 6-pack looks great on the beach. It's an exhalation muscle. It does some other things, but basically breathing's from the inside out. So with the respiratory machine, the younger we can get them on there, we can actually increase the trachea size. So when this hockey player went for his physical, they get him to blow into a spirometer. It measures how much air you can move out in 1 second in 6 seconds, right? And you divide those two numbers and you get a percentage. It should be 80%, give or take, and then everything's good. His was like 70 or 68%. So the doctor says, well, you have sports-induced asthma or asthma, right? But he already knew, I already told him. He can move 8.1 liters of air. So that means he has to blow out 6.4 liters of air. in 1 second. Impossible, because the
Yeah.
size of the hose is too small. When we get them younger, we can make that trachea a little bigger, right? So getting them breathing when they're young for their health and increasing performance and lasting longer, recovering quicker on the ice. And then once you get into an NX machine, now you're going to make their core strength so good. Stabilization. The more you have muscle units. So when kids first start skating, they're like this. Most of their muscle units are just trying to keep them balanced, stabilized, right? As you get better, less muscle units have to stabilize and more can be for mobility. So your energy is more efficient. With the NX breathing machine, your core strength is so strong that you have less to use for stabilizers and more to use for mobilizing for skating. And basically from that, it's just like anything else. You're training respiratory muscles. When you're training muscles, you want to train speed, you want to train endurance, and you want to train strength and force and all those other things, right? So that's what we do. We have the players in the circuit, they're breathing. So they say they're doing a speed day, then we do, as soon as they put the machine down for 30 seconds or a minute, then they're doing quick hands, or on that machine, quick hands, one touch, or they're on impulse, quick hands, right? Then they move to the next exercise, then the next exercise, and breathing's every second or third exercise. With pro guys, it's a little different, right? We actually have breathing sessions, right? And not even talking about recovery from hockey. You know this. Do you go to sleep right after a game, even from soccer?
Yeah.
No chance. No chance. Right? So how do we recover them quicker, especially if you're playing a bunch of games? So with the NX, we can increase your CO2 level. We can do altitude training right here. That means increase your CO2 range. That means your health, less chance of disease, all these different things. But also it's an anti-inflammatory, so you heal quicker and you sleep better. So our players, when they finish the game, they get their breathing back, and they get their food into them right away. They get their shake, then they eat their big meal. Then about 2 or 3 hours after, if you had a moxie on, you could see when the blood's back to your limbs. You don't need it. Wait 3 or 4 hours. And then you do a certain breathing technique and you go to sleep. So that's how the little more depth of how we're using that training tool. To get information on it, I've mentored quite a few people around the world with it. And our NX is going to be coming out hopefully in July. We'll see. COVID really put us back there. But yeah, they can reach me or Evolve or yourself.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'm smiling because I've been sort of, if I hearsay, sort of waiting for something affordable that works, that we can use on a sort of mass scale. So, that'll be exciting when that's finally released.
Yes, in my gym back in Canada, I would have a bunch of at that time Spiral Tigers. I would have a bunch, like 10 or 12, and then each player would have their user set, right? And then they would you and I would pair up with one machine. I would be doing push-ups or skills, and you're breathing, and then we'd switch, right? But all the players ended up buying their own machines, because when they go away, once they start, if they have the skill and they love the game, that machine stays with them. So in that, there'll be education courses, and it goes to your app, a phone on your app. So in there will be all the education courses.
I hope that you enjoyed this week's two-parter. Next week, we're going to continue our journey in long-term athletic development with a special focus on hockey with another fantastic guest. Thank you for joining me. And remember to share this, rate it if you enjoyed it, and let me know who else you'd like to hear from as well. Thanks so much for listening. And until next time, this is Dr. Nicky Kirk.